Hi everyone. Today we are going to be talking about for loops in Python. So I think in the last video we talked about loops a little and while loops in general. Today we are going to be talking about the other type of loop, which is called a for loop. So obviously the keyword here is for, so when you're starting a for loop, you use the for keyword. And this time, instead of specifying a condition, what you do is you have two options. You can define how many times you're going to iterate through the sequence, or you can just iterate through a set iterable. So what that means is you can iterate through something which has a sequence of elements, like a list, dictionary, tuple, or even a string. So for example, if I had for element in this. So element in this case is just a variable. It's called an iteration variable because it assumes the form of each of these elements each time this loop runs. So the first time it runs, it will take the form of 1, then 2, then 4, then 1, then 4. And remember, you can call this variable, this iteration variable, anything you want. So we can call it integer. Let's just keep it as integer for now. Okay, so just to show you how it works, let's go ahead and execute this program. If we do this, we get each element of the list printed in order. And we can do something a little extra here. We can say something like your element is something like this, right? And if you run this, you'll get your element is and each of these elements, right? So this is the basic form of a for loop. In this example, we're iterating through a list, but really you can do it through any data type. The only thing to remember is when you're doing it through a dictionary, let's actually predefine a dictionary. We'll call it D. And we'll say in this dictionary we have a key value pairs of fruits and integers. So I always use this example. So something like this, right? Now we have a dictionary where fruits are the keys and integers are the values. So when we're iterating through a data structure with elements with two parts or more parts, we need more than one iteration variable. So what we're going to do here is we are going to define two iteration variables. Let's actually call it key and value. And we're going to say for key value in d.items, what this does is key assumes the form of a fruit or any key in the dictionary, while value is the value. And remember, you can call these anything you want. Now we can say print key value, right? And if we run this, we should just get each pair of the dictionary, right? You can do something like, I think I introduced this in the dictionary video, but there are these other functions, d.values. You can do for key in value, for value in d.values, and print value. I think if you just leave it like this, it will print the key. I'm not exactly sure. Let's try it out. Yeah, so if you leave it like d instead of d.items or d.values, it'll just print the keys. There's also a .keys function, but you don't really need that since the default is to print the keys. So we can change the values like this. We can just say for d value is equal to something new. We can just say 9. So now if we print d afterwards, we should get different values for each of them. Apple 9, banana 9, and cherry 9, instead of 4, 5, and 43. So yeah, this is how you iterate through a dictionary. You can also iterate through a string. It's essentially the same concept. Just remember that string elements are immutable. They cannot be changed. Now let's talk about something a little more interesting. We'll say that you want to iterate through something that's you want to know how many times it's going to iterate. So we're saying iterating through a for a set amount of times, for a set number of times. And the way you do this is using the range function. So what we do is we have another iteration variable. You can call it whatever you want. I will call it I in this case. And I'm going to say for I in range 10, print I. So if I could comment this out, first of all, then we would get each integer in the range 10. Remember that 10 is not included in the range. It's every number starting from 0 going up till whatever number you put here. So if you wanted to include 10, you can just say range 11, and there you go. You get a 10. You can also specify the starting position as a first argument. If you wanted to start from 1, you can do that, and you will get 1 through 10, right? I think you can even specify the increments you want to go in. You can say increments of 2, and if you were to print it now, you'd get 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So yeah, this is the basic use of the range function. This comes in really handy if you're comparing two lists. So we are going to do a small example here. We're going to say A equals just a list of numbers, right? And now we're going to say B equals another list of numbers. Alright, so as you can see here, I've made them the same length just for the sake of this example. So what we're going to do is we are going to say for I in range length of A. So if we were to iterate through this sequence, we would just get values starting from 0 going up till the length of A, but not including the length of A. So really the range function is tailored to support list iterations and yeah, comparing lists. So what we're going to do here is instead of directly using this iteration variable, what we're going to do is we are going to say something like this, return AI, actually not return, sorry, print. Why did I do return? A and then I is greater than, actually we will do equals, greater than is fine, is greater than B of I. So if we were to run this right now, we should get a series of booleans, which just tells us if A of a certain index is greater than B of the same index. So what it's doing is comparing each element to each other. So 3 is not greater, 2 is not greater, 5 is not greater, 1 is greater. 1 is not greater, 5 is not greater. Really, 41 is the only integer which is greater than its B counterpart. So that is why we get a true over here. So yeah, you can do this with multiple lists if you want, or dictionaries. Also, I wanted to talk about one thing. In the last video about while loops, we covered the break keyword and continue keyword. That is also supported within a for loop. So suppose let's just use this example, and we'll say rather than printing something, we'll say if A sub I, that's like a good term for it. If A sub I is greater than 5, break. So if, sorry about that. Let's say greater than or equal to. Okay, that's great. So when this reaches 5, it will not print. Let's just put a print statement here. Print A I, right? So if we run this, we should get 3 and 2 because it stops after 5. It breaks out of the loop. We can do the same thing with continue. 2 of the 5s, actually the 2 5s and the 41 will not print. So all you will see is 3, 2, 1 because before it gets a chance to print, it continues, which just means it goes back to the top of the loop. Yeah, that is how the break keyword and continue keyword can be used in a loop. I think I already covered that in the previous video. Yeah. So one last thing I wanted to talk about is this really useful function, and it's called enumerate. So this is really handy. Suppose if you were it's exactly what it means. It's just enumerating each element of an iterable. So let's comment this out. Yeah, we can just do this. Okay. Okay, so now we are going to run another loop, and we're gonna say we still have these two these two lists right here. We're gonna delete B just for the sake of this example, and what we're gonna say is we're gonna say for element in enumerate A. So what this does is at the same time as iterating through the list, it assigns each value a number in a certain order. So if we were to print element, actually we would need to do, it would come back as an enumerate object. So we need to say tuple element, I think. And if we do this, we should get pairs. Let me just see what happens if you remove the tuple function. Yeah. Oh, actually, it works fine. So yeah, with this enumerate function, you are able to go through a list and at the same time be aware of its index. So in this case, you can do something like, since element is by default a tuple, you can say print your, actually this is, we'll do something else. We'll say if element and then 0, its first index, is equal to 5. So that's basically its last element. Now we're going to say, actually, wait, not element 0. Yeah, element 0. And then we're going to say A, element 0. And we can change the value of that. So we can say it's now going to be equal to 6. If we run this and print it afterwards, we should get something a little different. We should get, sorry, let me remove that, 6 instead of 5 as the last element. So actually, instead of 41 as the last element. So yeah, as you can see, this enumerate function has a lot of uses. It's really useful. Even like I use it a lot in my coding project. So yeah, this is a basic introduction to for loops. I really hope I did not forget anything, but yeah, see you guys later. Hello everyone, I just wanted to make sure you guys didn't get confused, so I added this extra portion. The thing you're iterating through needs to be a sequence of elements. Like, you cannot iterate through a number or an integer or a float. So if you do something like for n in 5, print 5, let's comment this out. If you do something like this, you will get an error because you cannot iterate through an integer object. The same thing goes for a boolean, but you can iterate through a string. So like doing something like this, print n, and we would get all the values. So just remember, you can only iterate through a sequence of elements. That's it.